Okay, Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cowboys Overtime, sponsored by Window Nation here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel, and that good looking gentleman on the other side of your screen is Mr. Dallas Cowboys Know It All, Nick Harris. Nick, Happy New Year. What did you do to celebrate to ring in the arrival of 2025, sir?
Slept. I was asleep by midnight for the first time in my life, and I felt great the next morning. I'm so washed. I'm cooked, Mac. It's the fun is over for me. I turned 25 on Sunday, and the fun is over for me.
Wow, 25.
Yep.
I remember 25. There's so many regrettable decisions I made when I was 25. Probably chief amongst them was following the Dallas Cowboys, whose 2024 season will end, thank God, on Sunday at AT&T Stadium. That's right. Our long national nightmare comes to an end.
It's my birthday gift.
It is a happy birthday. The Dallas Cowboys close the season at AT&T Stadium on Sunday at noon. That's how you know it's a dog game. It's at noon against the Washington, what are they called? The Commanders now? Okay, the Commanders. The Cowboys are getting 6 points, The Cowboys are 7-9, and this what will be their fifth losing season since 2003. Only 5 losing records since 2003. Wow. It's probably going to be a banner at some point. Nick, let me ask you this. Obviously, everything goes to hell when you lose your starting quarterback, as they did with Dak Prescott and the hamstring injury suffered against the Atlanta Falcons, moons ago. If Dak Prescott stays healthy, how many more wins do you think what do you think at best case is this team's record? They're 7-9 now. If Dak stays healthy, what's this team's record? What's this team's record after Sunday's game?
I look at some of these losses that they've taken. They're not beating Houston. They're not beating Philadelphia either time. They probably win that Cincinnati game.
Okay.
And I would probably give them this Washington game this week. So what is that, 9-8?
Yeah, you're saying basically that Dak Prescott, the starting quarterback at the Cowboys, in lieu of Cooper Rush, is basically worth maybe 1.5 wins.
Yeah. In half a season, so maybe 3 in the totality of it all.
Okay, so you think before the season started, and you and I and everybody else had grave concerns about the state of this roster. What did you predict? What was your record prediction for the club? Do you remember?
10-7.
I was at 10-7 too. I was at 10-7, and I thought they would get the last wild card spot. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, they were eliminated from playoff contention pretty much since the season started. But from the way this thing started to the way it ended, did it go dramatic? And obviously, the injury to Dak Prescott. But did anything happen that you can say, oh, I didn't see that one coming?
The blowout losses before the bye week. You look at New Orleans. You look at the Detroit game.
Baltimore. I know Baltimore was close, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I will say in that Baltimore game, though, if CeeDee Lamb does not fumble in the red zone in the first half, they might figure out how to win that game.
Okay. All right. Happy New Year.
I'll
give you that.
Right. You're 100% right. They were overwhelmed in that game from start to finish. They got back in it late. But those surprised me, those blowout losses. You look at the Texans loss, even when Cooper Rush was back into the starting quarterback equation. It surprised me they lost the fashion that they did so many times, and especially at home in a home stretch last year where they were so good. And then I think Green Bay just broke them. Not only at home, but just in general. I think Green Bay broke them last year.
I think there were a few developments that really surprised me this season on a positive note, and that is the play of some of their offensive linemen. I can't believe how much Tyler Guyton struggled as a rookie, and I know we've been spoiled by Tyler Smith and some other rookies who've walked through these doors and played pretty well. But Tyler Guyton looked really overwhelmed, like a guy who was just a great athlete and a big guy and got away with it in college, and now a guy who doesn't really know how to play the position. Brock Hoffman is a guy who played way better than I thought he would. TJ Bass, and I know we're going down some obscure rabbit holes to find some surprises, but those guys, Who I can't say his name. Who's the defensive lineman? I can't say his name.
Oso Odigizua.
Him. He looked great. That looks like a find. That looks like a definite find and a legit guy who should be a priority. I didn't anticipate him playing as well as he did. DeMarvion Overshawn looking as good as he did until he suffered that devastating knee injury a couple of weeks ago. The play of Jordan Lewis. I mean, Jordan Lewis has been a great pro for this team for a long time. And the fact he should have been a Pro Bowler. I know he didn't get the initial invite. I would assume at some point here in the coming weeks he will. But Jordan Lewis looked really good. Trayvon Diggs was a surprise. He did not look like a guy who was fully recovered from his injury, and now he's got another one. Certainly the play of Jake Ferguson. There's another one. I thought Jake Ferguson was going to be further along, and I think he took a step back. And the other good one was Rico Dowdle. I had hopes for him because I thought he'd be one of those guys that just sort of falls into it. Those are positives for me that I thought were surprises. But, one that is not a surprise at all, Nick, and this kind of leads us into our next topic, and that is the Ezekiel Elliott ride has finally come to an end for the Dallas Cowboys. You had a terrific piece in the Star-Telegram yesterday about his very eventful timeline with the Dallas Cowboys. Nick, I hated this re-signing in the offseason, not because Zeke the person, but because Zeke the player. And I thought it was just a ridiculously stupid move. And clearly he couldn't play. He was just absolutely done from the time they signed him. They cut him this week as a favor to Zeke so he could sign with the playoff team. Why a playoff team would sign him, I don't know. What is your make of the Ezekiel Elliott timeline beginning to end with the Dallas Cowboys?
UFL playoff team. I think that maybe should have been said.
It's good. It's good.
I think from the beginning, for me, signing him in place of a draft selection was such a bad decision. Now, whose
was it? I said it was Jerry's. Was it Jerry's?
I think at the end of the day, yes. And you look because they did so much legwork during the draft process with running backs. They brought guys in for 30 visits. They met with a bunch of guys at the combine.
Wait, time out. You're speaking football. Tell everybody what's a 30 visit.
A 30 visit being before the draft process, every team has the ability to host 30 draft prospects at their team facility, get to know them, do physicals, test their ball knowledge, and basically spend the whole day with them at the facility. Okay. And they brought in quite a bit of running backs. If I remember off the top of my head, there was like 6 or 7 in that group.
They wasted 6 or 7 30 visits on running backs and didn't pick one?
Did not pick one of them. So it's unfortunate. And then you look at the signing Ezekiel Elliott 2 days after the draft had concluded. And during the entire time when Jerry was asked, hey, when are y'all getting a running back? Hey, when are y'all getting a running back? Oh, we got Zeke coming. We think Zeke might be something. You bring in Zeke, sure. Still draft a guy. I mean, still bring in some young development. The guy's 29 years old going into this season. You can't bank on the fact that he's going to be this productive back for you. So that's where it immediately went wrong. And then from there, limited usage at training camp and preseason, despite it being a new offensive system for him. He was not. He did not play under the Mike McCarthy offense, but the first snap that he took in the Mike McCarthy offense was in week 1. Granted, that week 1 game was the best game he had all year, 49 total yards and a touchdown against Cleveland. He not only did not account for more yards in a game the rest of the season, he didn't have more touches in a game the rest of the season. So that Cleveland game was truly the end. I called it one final hurdle in that piece of our Telegram because he did have one, and it was the final time that I think we all got to see the shine of Ezekiel Elliott in the Cowboys uniform, and it's probably the only time we saw it with number 15 on the back. You see the habitual tardiness to meetings, sometimes just straight up missing meetings. He missed a 3rd meeting leading up to the Atlanta game after being told that he would be inactive for the Atlanta game, and they both decided that he would stay home for that road trip. And I don't know about you, Mac, but I thought he was going to be cut by the time they got back on Monday. Instead, Jerry Jones on Tuesday morning praising Zeke for, how he handled the situation and how he's a professional and they're going to support him. And that's what they did. And I always thought it was interesting in that moment how loud the support was from the front office and how forced the support was from the locker room. And I don't think that ever really recovered after that. You look at a couple of instances in the locker room after games over the course of the season, him trying to crack jokes with guys that was not really well received. Didn't feel like he had a lot of friends in that locker room by the end of it, especially with Dak Prescott being gone and done for the season. Granted, he was still traveling with the team, but it looked a lot different. He lost the support in the locker room very quickly. And I think for the last month and a half, Ezekiel Elliott's kind of been a shell of what he formerly was in this building. He's a guy that no one really, accounted for anymore. And whenever he went to the front office and said, hey, I would like to be released in hopes of trying to hop on with a playoff team, they granted him that wish.
Last question about Ezekiel Elliott. I agree with everything you said. That was great insight. I thought it was to me, that signing is why Jerry Jones should not be a unilateral GM of anything. I still can't believe they brought him back. Ezekiel Elliott, Ring of Honor player.
I would. Do I think they will? No.
Why not? I mean, it's Jerry's toy. He loves it. I mean, Kelly brought him back.
The thing about Zeke is it starts kind of a domino effect if you put in Zeke. If you put in Zeke, you have to put in Dak. And if you put in Dak, you have to put in Romo. And if you put in Romo, you got to put in Dez. And if you put in Dez, then we could go down the list here.
Well, the one thing about Ring of Honor, you're right. But the one thing about Ring of Honors, they belong to the team owner. And as we saw in Atlanta this season, Atlanta's owner, Arthur Blank, put himself in the Falcons Ring of Honor. I love that. Go look at Washington. Dan Snyder.
I built this. What are we talking about?
Yeah, right. This is mine. I'm in there. Washington put in Clinton Portis because Dan Snyder liked him. He was no more of a Ring of Honor player for Washington than I am, but Dan Snyder liked him. And at the time, he owned the team. So he put him up there. If Jerry's still Jerry and he likes him, he'll do it. And to hell with all the rest. But you make a good point. If you open that door, then you open a door to well, wait a minute. Why is this guy? Why is this guy? And that's part of the fun and debate of Ring of Honors and Hall of Fames. Go ahead.
I don't think there's an argument about Jerry loving Dion or Jerry loving Dez. And
you bring up that's totally fair. I can't argue with that. It's just a question of you work for the club. Whatever strikes this mood. Right?
Yep, that's fair.
All right, last topic before we go to break. Mike McCarthy. I know I've beaten this horse into the ground. Not much has changed. Jerry Jones goes on 105.3 The Fan this morning and basically says nothing Mike does and the staff does on Sunday against Washington will really have any effect on his decision whether or not he offers him a new contract in the coming weeks. Mike McCarthy talks on the station this morning, says, I'd love to be back, which could just be, empty rhetoric. What's your feelings now? What are your feelings now about the status of Mike McCarthy coming back for a 6th season as head coach of the Cowboys?
My opinion changes every day, Mac, just based on things I hear and the tea leaves of public appearances by both McCarthy and the Joneses. I think I'm starting to lean a little bit more every day, though, towards him not returning. I think I think there's a reality where they see some guys out there in the open market that could potentially change what has occurred here this season. I think there's probably a reality where that settles in.
I wrote about this last week of the jobs available out there, potential jobs. Mm-hmm. Chicago Bears, Jacksonville Jaguars, New York Giants, New York Jets, etc. All these different openings that likely will be coming available here in the coming days. Are any of them better than the Cowboys?
From an organizational standpoint, I don't believe so. But I believe from a team personnel roster building standpoint, yes. You look at Chicago, they have a young quarterback with a lot of pieces. They just need to build their offensive line. I think me or you could start at left tackle for them this upcoming Sunday. Jacksonville, I think, is a potentially interesting one. I don't love their organizational structure, obviously. Granted, they're getting a new stadium. They're starting to invest more in free agents, but they do have a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. They do have a solid draft pick going into the offseason. And then New Orleans, I throw that out there only because McCarthy has a lot of experience in New Orleans. He was an offensive coordinator there for a long time. But the way their roster is built right now, it's bad. They have a lot of bills that they have to pay coming up, and they probably wouldn't be able to field a competitive team until at least 26.
2 weeks ago, I would have said Mike McCarthy is coming back, and now for some reason, I'm kind of like you. For just some reason, I have this weird vibe that I think this is the end. And there's nothing specific, Nick, that leads me to that conclusion, but I just have this weird gut feeling. I don't know, something changed, and I just can't. There was a window in there. I thought, you know what, he might come back, and now it just seems to be trending in a different direction. And I don't know if he wants to come back. I don't know if he wants to work for Jerry anymore. I think he likes him. I don't know if he works for him. I don't know if he wants to work for him. Okay, we've got a couple more things to talk about before we wrap this up. First, let's hear from our friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no interest payments for 60 months, 5 full years. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, thank you very much, Window Nation, for sponsoring this and every other episode of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I'm Mac Engel. Happy New Year. He's Nick Harris, and even a happier New Year to Mr. Harris. Okay, couple topics before we wrap this up. This will be the final game for many Dallas Cowboys players. I've written down a handful of guys. You can tell me yay, nay, or add some more.
Okay.
Jordan Lewis, Tank Lawrence, Zach Martin, Cooper Rush, Eric Hendricks. I'm sure I'm missing some other guys. Give me an idea of this will be the final appearance as a Cowboy for a handful of players.
Brandon Cooks, I would think he's gone. Osa Digizua, I don't think they are going to be able to afford him going into the offseason. Heard some buzz there yesterday about that. I'm curious to see where that leads to. Jordan Lewis, I wonder what the price is going to look like. If he ends up getting that Pro Bowl, that price is going to look a lot different. So that one, I think that one's kind of a wait and see type scenario with Jordan Lewis. Granted, Zach Martin and DeMarcus Lawrence are on the IR, obviously not playing Sunday, right, but I think they both played their last snaps for the Cowboys.
You think Zach Martin's going to retire?
I believe so.
You've changed your mind on that. What made you change your mind, Nick?
Yeah, I think with the way that the Cowboys have performed with him out with Brock Hoffman in the equation, I think it's more of a Cowboys situation to look at it and see, hey, this is probably the best thing for the franchise moving forward. But I think, as I wrote whenever he went down with that ankle injury, I said that if Zach Martin wants to be back, he has the right to be afforded that opportunity.
Ring of Honor player.
Yes, absolutely.
Tank Lawrence?
No,
probably not. No, I think the slam dunk here is Zach Martin. Okay, last topic to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime. We're going to shift gears into a winning team, and that is the University of Texas. Bevo is 1 win away from appearing in the College Football National Championship game, and all that stands in their way is Walmart. I'm talking, of course, about Ohio State, what is clearly the best team in college football right now and the best team money it can buy. Ohio State will play Texas on Friday night in the Cotton Bowl at AT&T Stadium in the national semifinal. The other national semifinal is Penn State against Notre Dame on Thursday night in the Orange Bowl. A couple weeks ago, we would have said Ohio State is probably not your favorite because they lost to a bad Michigan team in Columbus. But since then, they have steamrolled everything in their way. Is there any chance that you give Texas, which barely beat Arizona State in the Sugar Bowl a couple of days ago and needed a miracle to do it, but they won. Do you give Texas any chance to beat what appears to be the best team in college football right now in Ohio State?
Absolutely, because Ohio State and Texas have the same problem. You don't know what version of the team will show up when it's game day. And if the right Texas version shows up and the wrong Ohio State version shows up, Texas can get out of there with a win.
They're 6-point underdog, by the way.
They are 6-point dogs, which
Okay.
is which I think is fair. I think it is with the way Ohio State played against Oregon, dominated that Rose Bowl. Jeremiah Smith is going to be a problem. If they cannot figure out how to guard Jeremiah Smith, they're going to have a long day. But on the same token, this Texas defense is really good. They played terrible against Arizona State, but I would be really surprised if defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski makes that happen 2 straight games.
Quick reference to the Sugar Bowl and the controversial targeting call that was not called in the final minute of the Arizona State game against Texas. Arizona State is driving for a potential game-winning touchdown or field goal. Texas player comes over the middle, has head-to-head contact against the Arizona State receiver. In any other circumstance, that is very likely called for targeting. Arizona State gets a 15-yard penalty, a first down, etc. Do you think, had that call been assessed, Arizona State wins that game?
Who cares? It's over, right? Yeah. Arizona State wins that game. I will say, though, it's not as much of a slam dunk as I think people think. Granted, it would have put them in field goal range, but they have had field goal issues all year.
They're the worst kicking situation in Power 4 football.
Easily. Kenny Dillingham in week 7 of the season said, hey, if you can kick on this campus and you're enrolled, please come show up to practice.
Open tryouts. Yeah,
open tryouts for that spot. So it's not a slam dunk that they would have made that field goal, just like it wasn't a slam dunk that Texas would have made a field goal or 2.
Quinn Ewers is the hero of the game by throwing a 4th and 13 touchdown pass in the overtime that allowed UT to tie it, and eventually that went on to win in overtime. Is in your mind, and granted, you and I both had the same read on that play. Arizona State sold out, and they blitzed everybody and their brother, which when they lined up, I'm like, why are you doing this? It's 4th and 13. And I knew what they were trying to do, but once they didn't get there, I said it even before he threw the ball. I said, this is going to be a touchdown.
Yep.
I'm just showing how smart I am. Let's not go over the fact that there are 59 minutes when I got everything wrong. Is Quinn Ewers' draft stock or his future with Texas or in college football changed at all because of what happened in that game or potentially could happen against Ohio State on Friday night?
I think potentially could. I think that's probably when you look at the totality of what he performs in the playoffs, I think that's where not only draft analysts will look at and scouts around the league will look at, but also his potential to return to college football and hit the portal.
All right, last question. Give me a prediction. Penn State, Notre Dame. Penn State is getting 1.5. Ohio State is giving 6. Give me your predictions.
I'm going to take Notre Dame and Texas.
Give me Notre Dame and give me Ohio State to win, Texas to cover. It should be noted, I never bet. Look, Candy's going Ohio State and Notre Dame. Smart woman. All right. Thank you, Nick. I know we ran long. Thank you very much for all your Cowboys coverage needs and Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl. Be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. Thank you. Thank you, Window Nation. Thank you, Candy Bolden. See you next week.